Welcome into Emerald and Lilywhite. This is episode 37. We are the official YouTube channel of Seattle Spurs. I'm your host, Scott. You can find me at ScottGBird on Twitter. With me, as always, is my co-host Max at Going Limbs. Max, what's up, man?
Not much. Coming off a big win. Gaining some momentum in the Prem at the right time, and then we got City tomorrow, and we have then a weekend off because we got knocked out of the FA Cup, and then we got Europa League next week, which is really huge. But to get that 8 days rest before Europa.
Yeah, I low-key, obviously I want to be in the FA Cup, but I low-key don't hate that we have a week off before things get hot in Europe for us. But yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that down the road with Max and I after a couple weeks off. Stoked to have him back on the show. Alex Chang at Alex Chang, X instead of an A. What's up, bro?
What's up? Glad to be back, ready to talk some Spurs.
No doubt, man. Lot to go over. We're gonna kind of freestyle it tonight. There's plenty going on, right? We'll make sure we stay on track, but we want to talk Ipswich before we get to Man City. We are recording Tuesday the 25th. One day prior to Spurs taking on City at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. One of the few matches throughout the calendar year that you can kind of pencil in a W. So always excited to play City, right? And it's at home, so we'll see. But before we do that, like I said, we want to talk Ipswich a little bit. Let's go straight to the lineup, Max. I think the glaring talking point for me was that James Maddison did not start. I don't think there's any conspiracy. I think we've talked a lot about on that show why that may be, right? But Maddison did not get the start. That was probably the first thing that caught my eye. But what stood out to you?
Yeah, I think of Maddison and then Davies not starting. I think those are two big ones. Favoring Danso on the left, which I mean he was notably good, but I think that he's better on the right there. So I would have preferred like Archie Gray on the left to Danso. But then Porro dropped. Udogie gets his first start back. Brennan gets his first start back. And as you can see below, Brennan was awesome. I thought Destiny was pretty good as well. It wasn't like anything insane from Destiny, but a solid performance given the circumstances. And then you see Bergvall, Bentancur back in. They've kind of been mainstays in the lineup recently, and we got some rotation in. Like you said, Maddison, Sarr, Porro, Odebear, all holding bench. So we'll see if any of those guys break into the lineup tomorrow. But overall, a good squad rotation, something I like to see, a couple changes and still getting an easy win and getting players back slowly but surely. So all in all, I was pleased with the lineup and the performance and not much to complain about.
Yeah, for sure. 100% agree. Chang, I want to talk about Sonny for a second here. We've all talked a lot on the show throughout the past year. Where's Sonny at? Is he starting to decline? What's the future look like for Sonny at Spurs? But I think one of my takeaways from Ipswich was that Sonny, with a week's rest, looks a little bit better than he's looked with just a couple of days rest. Do you think there's something to that?
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth, actually. A rested Spurs is like the best team in the world, I think. So obviously, like Son, he has that quality. I think throughout the season, it's definitely been more fatigue than anything, like lack of rotation. Obviously, with like a thin squad at times. But like that first assist to Brennan Johnson, where he like squares up his man, step over, go down the line, and he drills that in, and then Brennan just taps that in. That's brilliant, honestly, and like that's like vintage Son. So I think it's fair to say that with the rest, I think he still has a lot to give to the squad.
I agree 100%. I think Sonny takes care of himself really well, treats his body right. We all know that his mind is solely focused on football. It's well known that, he won't be in a serious relationship until he retires, and that's his own words, right? He just wants to give his full attention to football, and I think he's got a couple more years at the highest level as long as he's got rotation and rest, which every footballer needs, but especially one that's 33 years old. So Stoked for Sonny. And you guys have played at a higher level than I have, both of you. I mean, we all know though that when you're fatigued, it really impacts the way that you play, right? Your mind's not quite working right, or maybe it is, but your legs can't keep up with the ideas. And just being a half step behind has a massive impact when playing sports, but especially soccer. So, yeah, happy to see Sonny back for sure. I want to talk about Archie Gray too for a second, Max. We had a little bit of a chat in our group chat via text or whatever about Archie Gray, and I know you. Obviously, we all know that he's played super well and played really well against Ipswich again, and is continuing to prove himself a very tidy footballer at a young age. But you had shared some concerns that, you know, he was veering further and further away from the familiarity of the sixth position with all these reps he's getting at center back. You want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah. I think Chang kind of brought this up, like the question of if anyone is like worried about Archie Gray's sixth development. Oh, yeah. I kind of just, what I really don't want is that for him to be put in a box. Like it kind of seems like he's only being used as a center back right now when we could use him as a six. And that's the part that's a little bit concerning to me. Let's just take last game. I know maybe Davies had a knock, whatever it may be. You could have easily started Davies and Danzo and put Archie Gray at the six to get him minutes there last game against Ipswich. Like, I don't think that's such a high risk thing. And I think it would be good for the development. I know some people think that it's too late in the year to shake things up like that. Just full reset next season, get him preseason at six and get him going, because he didn't really play much six at Leeds. He played primarily fullback last season. So I'm just worried, like, is he actually a six, which I think is his best position, but now it's 2 seasons in a row he's only played fullback and center back. I just want to see him get 6 minutes, and I think when we do get our center backs back, he is too good of a player, which I said before, he's too good of a player to be getting rotational minutes at center back or fullback, rather than getting a good chunk, like maybe every other game at the sixth position, which I think he's more than capable of doing based on what we've seen from him this season.
Yeah. I mean, I was one of the people that said it probably makes more sense to just hard reset at the end of the season and bet him in as a six throughout the offseason and preseason. And he's 18 years old. Like, he's going to be putting the work in the offseason, right? He's young enough to kind of go all year or whatever at 18. So I expect him to get a lot of training, you know, throughout the summer or offseason rather. But it's ironic because once Romero and Van de Ven are back, like, he may never play center back again. You know, and he's played so much center back and he's been fucking fantastic at center back. So it's just coincidental at best, ironic at worst, that he probably won't get any more reps there. I do think he'll get a lot of minutes at fullback. I'm starting to join you, Max, on the Pedro Porro may not be up to it in the way that we thought he was trained. He's good for a fucking dime or two onto Solanke's head every game, right? But that's kind of about it. And we all know his defensive acumen is suspect at best. So I wouldn't be surprised if, with the emergence of Jet Spence and Udogie getting back to health and Archie Gray being freed up once Romero and Van de Ven are back, you know, that Porro sees fewer and fewer minutes. And as harsh as this is to say, it's probably for the good of Tottenham Hotspur if that were to happen. I'll ask both of you this: like, could Pedro Porro supplement time on the wing, or is that just like FIFA talk and not something we'd explore?
I was actually thinking about that while you were talking, but I think we could definitely try it maybe like when we're ahead 5 field goals, or like maybe when we're like trying to guard a lead, like put a fullback at winger, he can drop back a little bit. Like, obviously his defensive responsibility isn't like his biggest strength, but like maybe sticking him at the wing, like when you're trying to defend the lead, you know, have Jed Spence like back there behind him, really like taking up the blunt of the defensive responsibility, but then having Pedro Porro like chip in maybe a little bit. Maybe that is just my FIFA time talking, but I don't know.
I just don't know how much experience he has there in the past. Like, I'm not super versed. Like, I know in Lisbon he kind of played in a back five. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but now that we have like Mikey Moore, who's not even playing, like, why would we ever have Porro playing? That's kind of my take on it. With Odebear Johnson back and then Werner back, like I don't know if what's happening with him, but I just want to say, like, for the Europa League, like, Porro can go crazy in the league. I think that's the perfect setting for him right now. Yeah. It's where we want to score goals. We want to be positive, just play our system. Results aren't as important. Europa League, dude, there's no world where Spence should not be starting over Porro, because we need to preserve the game. And it's not like Spence has been bad going forward. He just scored against Ipswich. So I don't think the benefit of playing Porro for his passing outweighs anything that Jed Spence provides, who's almost been our man of the match for the past 3 games, which is kind of crazy. So for the Europa, I do not want to see him unless we're really chasing a game in a second leg or something. But for the first leg next week, it's got to be Spence and Udogie.
Let's go back to Ipswich for a second. We've kind of veered into bigger picture lineup stuff, which is great. But let's talk about Ipswich. Let's talk about Jed Spence while we're on the subject. Obviously, phenomenal performance from Jed. I think the biggest thing that I want to talk about with Jed Spence is you've got a guy who is team of the season in the championship when he's on loan at Forest, if I'm not mistaken, right? Middlesbrough. Forest. It's vice versa. Forest. He was on one of them and he was loaned out to the other, right? And he was team of the year in the championship, got the big move to Spurs, which is a Big Six club. That's a big jump. That's a dream for a player like that. But it's going to come with understanding that you're not walking into the starting 11 and you're going to have to really work your ass off to even earn the opportunity to compete for minutes, right? And I think with a lot of guys, that is a hard mental hurdle to get over, right? But for Jed Spence, it took some time, but it's clear from Ange's messaging in the press that Jed is like a mental warrior and battled through all kinds of adversity to get to his opportunity, which he took with both hands fully. So, Max, I'll just come to you, man. Do you think this is kind of like the hype of the time, or is Jed Spence the real deal?
No, it's so legit. Like it's been an extended span of games right now. He's started 13 games this season. I can't think of one poor performance off the top of my head. He's part of the reason we nearly made the Carabao Cup final, because he kind of sparked us against Coventry back in August. Rotted on the bench for far too long, and then the injury crisis brought him in, and he's just been absolutely fantastic. And at this point, he's played so many games, I don't think you can chalk it up to fresh legs. Like, I just don't think that's a proper – you don't just take any old Joe off the bench and he's good because he has fresh legs. That's not how soccer works. And, yeah, he's the real deal. And I just want to push back on a press conference that Ange Postecoglou said that this was all part of his plan for Jed Spence, the adversity, leaving him out of the Europa League. Like, that's fucking bullshit, dude. Like, stop lying out of your ass to make the fans think that you're smarter. There's no fucking way. Every single report from last year, you loaned him out. Last summer, you wanted to sell him. We kept him because we didn't have any fullbacks. Like, what the like, no, this was not part of your plan. You were forced into playing him, and then he turned out to be one of your best players. I'm not letting Ange put that feather in his cap at all, especially for us who have been fans of Jed Spence since the beginning, and no one believed in him. And now we, invert the wing, are on the Jed Spence hype train. So let's go.
You know, there may be a world where Ange just says, I want to avoid a situation where I say, yeah, we all thought he was shit. Turns out he wasn't. And like kind of hype him up and show that he fought through this like pseudo or faux adversity, right? So I don't know. Coaches say all kinds of weird shit. But yeah, whatever the case is, long may it continue. Jed Spence, undroppable, first name on the team sheet for Tottenham Hotspur. By the way, not Tottenham. It's Spurs or it's Tottenham Hotspur. We learned, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But no, all jokes aside, man, couldn't be happier for Jed. Chang, we got to talk about Brennan too. 2 goals. Obviously, one of them was a tap in, and you know we'll admit that. And the second one was a little bit more than a tap in, but I think a pretty clean finish with his left foot, if I'm not mistaken. But I think Brennan has his faults, right? I don't think he's like the true dynamic winger that we all want our wingers to be at times, but he's been finishing all season without a doubt. And I think we got to give some love to Brennan too.
Chang hates Brennan.
Yeah.
I threw it to him.
To add on to that, like 9 goals, 2 assists in the league, 17 goal contributions, all competitions. Like those are like fantastic numbers. Yeah. And I think it goes to show like Brennan Johnson is like, he's like a stat merchant, bro. Like you look at his stats, like his stats are fantastic. 9 goals is like a breakout season for many, many wingers in the Premier League. Yeah. And yet, like as like he's probably like the most divisive figure on the team. I think like there are tweets that are saying like Tottenham fans are the only people that hate Brennan Johnson for doing his job. But at the same time, like I've seen like videos like he always gets those back post tap-ins because nobody cares to defend him. Like he's not a like people don't recognize him as a threat. Like there's like go do whatever. Like we're not gonna double up on you. Like we might like put a man on you. Like just go do it. Like he's not a threat. Teams don't see him as a threat. So he just sneaks in behind. He gets those tap-ins. He gets another goal on his like his little team sheet. But I think like he is a very different profile to like someone like Odebear. And I think like sometimes those like different profiles are what you need on the wing. Like if something's not working, you put in Brennan Johnson, you know, he'll stretch the back line. He's a willing runner in behind. He's a like decent finisher. And I think like his price tag definitely has a lot to do with it. Like 55 million, like we definitely could have spent that better or elsewhere.
Brennan Johnson price.
Like the Kane money, dude. Brennan Johnson essentially.
There was like the I Nick out like protest chants, and it was like at each minute, like first minute, and then like 7th minute, that's like Daniel Levy, blah blah blah. And it's like 55th minute, Brennan Johnson price.
Yeah. To just like keep saying, I think like obviously I don't think he's someone we sell, but I think he's definitely someone who should not be a starter. I think he's a very much like a bench player, like so a super sub type of guy. So
yeah, I don't hate that shot. I mean, I think he is going to start matches, but I think when we get to a point where we have the proper depth that we're looking for up top, I think he probably comes on as a sub more so than he starts, but I think he will for sure get starts next season or however long he's at Spurs. It's interesting. I think Brennan would be pretty solid in like a front two, which just isn't really utilized like anywhere in the world anymore, right? Just to be that striker to, like you said, stretch the back line and just run, right? I think he would be pretty solid up there. But you know, all that to say, I agree with you. I think he's just kind of a unique profile to have around that does offer a lot of good in the right situation. And like you said, 9 goals. I believe he had at least 9 goals last season too, if I'm not mistaken, or close to it. So he
did 9 goals, 5 assists.
Yeah. Cool. So he tidy little player, and I'm happy for
14 him goals, all comps. I just want to say that 3 more goals than the next highest scorer. I mean, you got to hand it to him, dude. He doesn't take more than 2 touches, and he's just bagging 14 goals. It's like honestly really impressive. And like Chang said, it's super helpful to have different winger profiles in your squad. So once we get like a fuller squad, just having someone that is like the polar opposite of what we're normally striving for is really, really helpful tactically and will make it difficult for teams. So shout out to him. He'll probably start most of the games going forward this season, if I had to guess, if he stays healthy. And I hope he breaks 20 goals. That would be absolutely massive for him if he had a 20 goal season under his belt. All comps.
No doubt. Yeah, super happy for him. That was his first brace for the club, which actually kind of surprised me. I felt like that
really?
That had happened before. But yeah, maybe it's just because he scores in like bunches, but never multiple goals in a game.
Yeah, it was just like one goal at each game for like 9 straight games.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so for Brennan, we can talk about Tell for a second too. I think think there's a whole lot to chew on yet. It's still very new. I mean, my quick take on Tell is that when you're coming from Germany to the Premier League and then you're asked to play the 9, that's like a massive adjustment physically and mentally. I think when Solanke and Richarlison, excuse me, when Solanke and Richarlison return, I think he'll get a lot more minutes on the wing, and I think he'll just have a little bit more time and space, and not tons more, right? It's still going to be tight, but just a little more breathing room and time on the ball, I think will be really good for Tail. But he hasn't been great, but like I said, I chalk that up to nothing more than just coming from Germany to England and then being asked to play the 9.
Yeah. He was pretty bad. Like he was by far a worse player, in my opinion. But like you said, like he's a teenager, a new league, Premier League. But you better settle in quick, dude, because the clock is ticking. We got the Europa League next week. And he's got to lock in. And we will get those reinforcements back. And I think Solanke will obviously be a huge part of that. But Tell was still like him and Danzo were the two marquee signings of the window, and Danzo making that immediate impact. So shout out to him. But Tell is still working his way up. And that brings me to another teenager that started this game, Lucas Bergvall. Scott, that Bergvall performance.
Fantastic. He's capable of playing anywhere from the 6 to the 10. I truly believe. He has the profile to play all 3 positions well. And dare I say, he may have the best profile on our team to play the 6. And that's a conversation we'll get to when we talk about a certain contract extension that may or may not be happening, right? But anyways, Bergvall is the real deal. It's evident to me that he was on Barcelona's radar, and there's reason for that, right? And from all understanding, we signed him at the 11th hour from underneath Barcelona's nose, right? And I'm sure we walked in and said, bro, you're going to play a lot, right? And you're not somebody who I see as a teenager that needs to bed in and build up. You're going to come be an integral part of the squad if you come to Tottenham Hotspur. It's the conversation that would have had to have happened for him to make that decision to come to Spurs, right? And that's been the case. Now, granted, it did require a few pieces going down for him to really get those like day in, day out reps, but it's really paid off. I'm thrilled with Lucas Bergvall, and I think he's 18 years old, 19, right? Is he 19? 19. So I'd say by the time he's 22, he's like one of the better players in the Premier League.
Easily.
Yeah. While we're on the subject, Chang, let's talk about Madison for a second. Didn't get the start, came on. FODMOB gave him a 7, if I'm not mistaken. That's anytime impressive. You come on as a sub and you put up a 7, it means you made an impact, right? So Madison comes on, does his job. He, if I'm not mistaken, he assists the
Jed.
Spence. That was a crazy assist.
It was nasty. I mean, Spence doesn't score without James Madison balling in front of him. So, let's talk about Madison because there's all this chatter. Why doesn't he start day in, day out, right? Is there a future for him at Spurs? He's obviously one of the best players on the team, but what's your take on the Madison of it all, Chang?
Yeah, so I think a while back, I was someone who said like Madison isn't going to be here in like 3-4 years if we're like really trying to be ambitious, which Max obviously disagreed with. But I do think like I am coming around on him. I think like from a pure footballing like ability point of view, he's like probably the best player on our team. I think the way he moves is just so like smooth. It's so silky. I think the one thing I admire, like as someone who like also like plays soccer, like the way he chops the ball back with the inside of his foot. It's like he's so good at that. I think I was on TikTok the other day. There was a a video of Ola Aina reacting to a video of James Madison. Like, he chops it back. Ola Aina goes like flying past him, and he's like live reacting to it. But the way he moves, the way he like his footwork. Obviously, we saw on the assist the Jet Spence. He like gets through like 3 guys like on the edge of the box, lays it back off the Jet Spence, who just buries it. Like, he's just so like technically gifted. The way like it's just remarkable, honestly. I think he is someone that we should like maybe start looking to like build the team around a little bit, as obviously one of our more senior players. He's like entering his prime right now, so I think he does like these next 2 or 3 years are going to be absolutely huge from him. And yeah, I think as to why he may not start like week in, week out, I think it might be like coming back from injuries, like probably a little more frail, like history of injury type of thing. So I think as long as we're careful with him, manage his minutes a little bit, I think he has a lot to give this squad.
Yeah, I mean, Max, I'll come to you, but I think Chang's on to something. I really think that, and again, I have no knowledge of this. It's just all my opinion, but I think that when you look at his injury history and you start to use all this data in football, especially at Spurs, it's been like 18 months since we've really been utilizing data to the level we are now. I'm sure we just discovered that James Madison can't stay healthy if he starts every match, right? And it makes sense to supplement minutes and make sure that he's available for the rest of the season. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's really important, managing his minutes. But yeah, I you know what? I'm just gonna I kind of alluded to it before, but I just think he's the 10. Like, he's got to be the 10 for me.
Yeah.
If we're starting the Europa League final, he's got to be the 10. These stats are ridiculous. Like, it's not just the play, which I completely agree about with Chang about great, just silky, just like poetry in motion type player. 99th percentile non-penalty goals per 90, 98th percentile assists per 90. This is for all midfielders. 98th percentile shot creating actions, 95th percentile progressive passes, 91st percentile progressive carries, 97th percentile successful take-ons, and 95th percentile passes into the box for midfielders. Though that is insane. Those are insane numbers. And it even holds true when you compare him to other attacking, like his progressive passes. He has the highest goals plus assists per 90 on the team. It's just ridiculous when you actually look at the numbers. And I just don't see how some people are kind of writing him off a little bit. I 100% think he's one of the top 2 or 3 players in our best squad if we're starting Europa League final tomorrow.
Yeah, completely agree with everything you both said. And Chang mentioned his technical ability. There's no one on our team outside of Kulusevski who even is remotely in his world when it comes to technical ability. And we've already talked about the fact that Madison has more of the end product compared to Kulusevski, which we know Kulusevski did score a banger against Ipswich.
Yeah.
We won't ignore that, right? But yeah, Madison is definitely known to be in and amongst the goals, or at least scoring them rather than creating them a little bit more than Kulusevski. I personally think if you had to rank Ange's biggest challenges at Tottenham, I think number one, smack dab, absolute highest priority challenge for him is figuring out how to get Madison and Kulusevski on the field at the same time and have that be effective. It's happened before, so I'm not saying it never has, right? But finding a way for both of them to start effectively, because it's really hard to lose that 8. And Kulusevski is an 8 and can be an 8, right? But like that true Sar Bergvall 8, I think it's detrimental to the team to lose that. And so it's going to be tough for Ange to get them on the field. I don't think Kulusevski's been great on the right wing. I think there's a time and place for it, but I think he's better suited to that midfield role. But yeah, I think that'll probably wrap it up for Ipswich. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we move on to talking about City?
I just what do you guys think about I was gonna say Sar. Like, Sar didn't even appear in this game. Like,
good point.
It kind of seems like with the emergence of Bergvall, like Sarr is kind of just fading into the distance a little bit. At least that's like when I just off the top of the head remembering like recent games, like I kind of don't remember that many Sarr moments.
Yeah, I'll be quick and I'll let Chang get into this too. But I just think Sarr's a very good footballer, but I think he's kind of like that just standard like blue collar blueprint, where he's going to come in, he's going to work his ass off, he's going to play the right pass, but he's not going to do more than that, right? And that's kind of what a Bergvall gives you. So that's my only take there. But I think Sarr is obviously someone we definitely want around the squad. He's super young too.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I do really like Pape Sarr. I think when you compare him and Bergvall's profiles, I think they both do have an engine. I think Bergvall likes to dribble a little bit more. I think that would be like my one gripe with him a little bit, like just passive 1-2 touch sometimes. I think which is something that Pape Sarr does more. But yeah, like Max was saying, with the emergence of Bergvall, I think Pape Sarr is definitely fading a little bit. And I think like going forward, he might take more of a back seat in this squad, which is a little sad because he is pretty young. But I do like him, and obviously, yeah, I'd love to keep him around. So,
yeah. And then, do you guys just really quick? Dane Scarlett picked up an assist.
Oh yeah, you got that apple.
Y'all got any takes on that? I mean, shout out to him, dude. Like he's actually getting playing time, like ahead of like a guy like Sarr, when we're winning. So interesting.
Hurricane regen, man. Look at that.
And over Mikey Moore too. I should note. Did not play.
I think he has like 1 goal and 2 assists coming off the bench in like 58 minutes for us.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Something like that. And you see in the interview, Ange was like, assists are the most useless stat in sports, but Dane Scarlett had a nice assist.
That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Did he actually say that, dude? Like his press conferences are just making me lose faith. Like, did he not see Madison just absolutely cook like 5 dudes and just like, and that like every Brennan goal is like inside the goal before he scores.
And Ange is gonna be Ange, and we're gonna let it be. All right, guys says some weird shit, but he's gonna win us the Europa League, so we'll forgive him for that.
Sure hope so.
Before we talk City, we'll talk briefly about a press release that Spurs put out. It's kind of a non-story, but again, we'll briefly address this as the official YouTube channel of Seattle Spurs. Spurs come out and tell the British media, and I guess the wider media in turn, right, that they are not to be called Tottenham, but are to be referred to as Tottenham Hotspur and or Spurs, or Tottenham Hotspur Football Club is fine, right? They said not Tottenham Hotspur FC, which I've like actually never heard Spurs be called once in my life, but that I had a chat with some people who are just well versed in this kind of stuff recently, and what I learned was the idea is that from a branding perspective, Enoch and the club feel that Tottenham is like a place and a neighborhood, which it is, right? And so they think that to like the layman or to the non-soccer fan who's starting to find their way into soccer, that Tottenham Hotspur or Spurs is more assimilated to like a football club and not just Tottenham the area, which I guess kind of makes sense. But I never see a world where we don't call them Tottenham. So I don't know.
We're calling them Tottenham, and I also just like don't even like for any non-British person or even maybe like Londoner, like who is actually genuinely thinking of like Tottenham the place? Like it's just a neighborhood in London. Like so it's Chelsea.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah. These Spurs just keeping people on their toes. You never know where you're going to come out with. Let's talk City. And to the listener, I have a short night tonight. I'm going to hop off, so I will be dropping off. But Max and Chang are going to run with it here. They're going to talk about City. They're going to talk about a certain contract that may or may not be coming through and how the dominoes fall in relation to that. And then, as always, Max will come to you with some Lone Watching Academy stuff before we wrap up. But for myself, I'm going to say peace out. Appreciate all the listeners. You fellas have at it.
All right, take care.
Peace out, Scott. All right, so yeah, we're taking on Manchester City this Wednesday at home. Second time we're playing them at home. We've already beat them twice this year. We are aiming to go 6-0 against Manchester teams, which would actually be pretty ridiculous. So, Chang, what are you thinking in terms of the lineup for City tomorrow?
I think I definitely want to see like an athletic midfield. I think that's one of City's biggest weaknesses with an aging squad. No Rodri. Like you look at the type of players they have there, like Kovacic, Bernardo Silva, Kevin De Bruyne, etc. Like those are not guys with legs, bro. Their legs are gone. They're washed. Let's put out like Bergvall, has an engine. I don't want to see Bentancur. Maybe like Bergvall, Kulusevski, maybe like Madison, just like an athletic team that are gonna like run at them, like give them like win those battles, like win those duels. Kulusevski, big frame, he's like definitely gonna physically dominate. But yeah, I think that's definitely something I'd want to see in the midfield. I think as for the front line, probably gonna see Tell again as we have no real other options. On the left, Son, and then on the right, I feel like we're probably gonna see Brennan coming off 2 goals. Um, Definitely someone who's like, yeah, we're just gonna see Brennan. Fucking hell. Not my preference, but we're gonna see him. And then back line, Udogi, Spence, which is probably our fullback pairing going forward. Pedro Porro definitely gonna have to fight to try and get back in this side. And center backs, definitely Donso, but whether he goes for Davies or Archie Gray, I think I don't know. What do you think for center backs?
I think for Davies and Gray, it just depends who he wants to play against Alkmaar. For some reason, I just feel like it's going to be Davies because Gray played last game, and then Gray's going to start next week. That's kind of what I think. Midfield, yeah, I agree. I think this might be a Basuma game, unfortunately. So it'll probably be Basuma, Bergvall, and then maybe Madison. Because like I don't know, is he not going to start 2 games in a row? Give Kulu a bit of a rest. And then yeah, Son, Tell, Johnson, like that's almost nailed on. And then I think the fullbacks keep it consistent because we do have 8 days till the next game. So that's kind of what I think. As for City's lineup, Holland, Stones, Akanji, all injured. We'll probably see Omar Marmoush for the first time, but they really don't have a striker. Honestly, feeling pretty confident about this one. The City team's just not that good, man. Like they're just not that fearsome this year, and we've already got the best of them a couple times this season. So, you got a score prediction?
I think 3-1.
All right. Yeah. I'll go with 2-0. I hope we get a clean sheet. Vicario and net. Obviously, he's been a big piece to return there. As for returners, apparently in the next 7 days, Romero, Van de Ven, Richarlison, and Solanke are coming back.
Bro,
that could be perfect timing for Europa League if we just got like a God squad back. So we'll see about that. And yeah, the report that Scott alluded to earlier is that the club is looking at extending Rodrigo Bentancur's contract, or they've engaged in talks to do so. So what's your opinion on that move? I must say a little bit perplexing, in my opinion.
I think like earlier in the season we were discussing like if we had to keep one out of Bentancur, Bissouma, like who would we keep? And at the time I did say Bentancur, and I honestly would stick to that opinion. I think Bentancur just has like that seniority. He probably has like that locker room presence, and honestly, like, yeah, maybe he's a little past it. Like, yeah, we wouldn't love to see him starting week in, week out. But I do think he does have something to offer. And I think you can't just build a team full of teenagers. You got to keep some old heads around. So I think out of like our more senior players, like you think like Bissouma, Bentancur, Davies, Son, etc. Bentancur is somebody that I'd like to stick around. So I'm like not too mad about it. But what is your take?
Yeah, no, I'm just like, what is the point of this? Like, can we not just sign like Baliba or like Adam Wharton or fucking Johnny Cardoso in the summer? Like, our midfield is gonna get so crowded with Gray, and then we've seen Bergvall and Sarr's not getting any minutes right now. I think Sarr is better than him. Like, I don't feel like that's a crazy take to spit that Sarr is like a better number 8. He might not be better at 6, but I think 6 is going to be one of our top priorities in the summer. Logistically, I just don't know where he fits in this project. He's kind of on the older side. You know, I own a Bentancur jersey, but he's just been so shit at 6 this year that I can't get it out of my head right now, and I just can't fathom why you would extend the contract. Like, I still think he has 1 year remaining. Like, he's good until the end of next season, so I'd be down to let him play it out 1 more year, like a Højbjerg type thing. But I don't know, man. I mean, this summer is the one to sell Bissouma and Bentz. Me personally, I'd let both of them go, and I've been a little bit on the Bissouma train for a bit of the season. I think when we did talk about that, I picked Bissouma as the one I would keep. I may have changed my tune slightly a little bit, but I think Ange has just played Bentancur more. But at the end of the day, man, they're both shit. So like, yeah, they're having these ladies having a mid off. So I just I don't want to see him extending here. So yeah.
Nah, it's valid. He's pretty shit. Actually,
Yeah. Yeah. So you got any final thoughts before we wrap it up here?
Nah. Let's make it 6-0 versus Manchester, bro. We actually own that city.
Yeah, we for sure own that city. We're pushing for the title at this point, 3 wins in a row. So that's quite exciting. Is there anything else I would mention? Yeah, no. Academy Watch brought to you by the Wits End. Shout out to Luka Vuskovic and Jamie Donnelly. I guess this is Academy Watch and Loan Watch brought to you by the Wits End and Cascades. Both of them bagging goals. Luka Vuskovic has like 8 goals from center back now, which is absolutely insane. In the Belgium league, so it's not even like that poor of a league as well. Like, we saw what Bergvall was doing last year. I predict that Luka will come into the squad this upcoming summer and make a big difference. So shout out to him for that. Shout out to the Wits End and Cascades for supporting Seattle Spurs. You can pop out to the Wits tomorrow to watch Manchester City, or next week to watch AZ Alkmaar as we move into the spring season. So yeah, man, we got our sights set on Europa League. And the squad is getting healthier, and that's always good. So shout out to them. Before we go, the Sounders did kick off their MLS season with a 2-2 draw to Charlotte FC, Zaha-less Charlotte FC. Chang and I were there. This is a Seattle Spurs podcast. So Chang, any Sounders takes following our first 2 games? We got another game tomorrow night. Chang and I will be there again. So yeah, we're just dedicated. But thoughts on the performance / the squad so far this year for Sounders?
Yeah, so obviously the draw feels more like a loss, especially conceding in that fashion. Jackson Reagan 2 errors and then Neymar own goal actually feels like something straight out of FIFA. Absolutely, like 90+3. That shit's just heartbreaking. Like you hate to see it, especially after standing for 3 hours in the soaking rain, bro, nonstop rain. Yeah, far from ideal result. I mean, some fans can choose to look at it as a glass half full type of thing. Like, we didn't lose, we got 1 point, but bro, like, come on, bro. It's Charlotte fucking FC, no Zaha, which is their marquee player. It's just like we did deserve to win. I do feel like we deserve to win. We dominated most of that game. Yeah. I think there are like positives to take away. I think we dominated the game. Like we did have like full control of that game until that moment, which is just heartbreaking to concede in that fashion. But yeah, like looked good. I think Paul Rothrock looked a little weak. I think apart from that, the back line struggled a little bit. Like Max said, Alex Rodon was our best defender, and you never want to see that. So, yeah, I'll kick it to you, bro.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I second that. The defense was shocking. Aside from Alex, he was actually quite decent. The disappointing thing is like you said, we controlled the game and subsequently controlled the midfield. I thought Christian Roldan and Obed were actually really good. Rusnak was quite good as well, despite what we both think about him. He played it Morris through brilliantly. Another guy who's been under a lot of criticism from us, specifically Jordan Morris, bags 2 goals and ties the all-time Sounders record. So we're fingers crossed that we're going to see him break that tomorrow night, which would be pretty sick. Other than that, yeah, I agree. Rothrock, man, he looked rusty. On the bright side, on the other flank, Georgie was fantastic. And then off the bench, I think Ferreira and Areola, the FC Dallas brothers, both looked lively. And I think that Paul Rothrock, if Georgie's going to keep it up and both those dudes are going to keep it up, and then you got Pedro de la Vega waiting in the wings too, and he bagged a goal last week, and then Morris bags a couple goals. Rusnak scored. It just gets really crowded really quickly for those front 4 spots. So as I fully expect Rothrock to turn it around, I think right now, based off what we've seen from Georgie, who got an assist in each of the first 2 games, I think Rothrock is on a bit of a chopping block there. But looking ahead to tomorrow, we're taking a 3-1 lead back home. I expect to see some rotation for the boys. Maybe a little Legend of Danny Leva action tomorrow.
Hey, hopefully not.
It couldn't hurt anybody. But I think they will try quite hard to get Morris that record breaker. And then I also think that there will be midfield rotation. I expect to see Pedro. I kind of expect to see Danny Leva, maybe João Paulo, one of those 2 guys to slot in there. And then maybe a John Bell. Shout out to him for not getting picked by San Diego FC. But yeah, that's all I got for the Sounders. Actually, last thing before we go, Kevin De Bruyne to San Diego this summer. Any takes? How does this affect the West?
Nah, we dominate, bro.
All right.
Hey, they have a decent squad though. I know. What is his name? Anders Dreyer, something like that.
Yeah.
They have him. I know he got a team of the season card last year.
They got Chucky Lozano.
Luca Della Torre.
Oh shit, he's on there?
He's on
US
loan.
national team legend?
Yeah, he's on loan.
Dude, is he cooked for the national team?
He might be, bro. He used to be good. Wasn't he? He's playing for Celta Vigo.
Celta Vigo, bro. That's like a real team.
No, he was like starting and he was like playing well for them. But yeah, it might be over, bro. Like the second you take the MLS loan pill, like you're not.
Dude, he was at Fulham in 2016. Damn, dude, he like came up through the Fulham Academy. I feel like
that's like before I had consciousness, bro.
He came up with Anthony Robinson, bro. Shout out the best U.S. player in the world. Or him or Pulisic.
Pulisic.
But Anthony's low-key like team of the season level.
No, he's good as well. He's definitely, I think, second best. Like comfort.
Yeah.
Bro, but Weston and Way are cooking though.
Bro, they're cooking their way straight out of the UCL.
Hey, that's not on them, bro.
When Tim Weah's bagging, you know it's cooked for your team, bro.
Bro, Weston's like their best player, bro.
I know, bro. That team is ass, bro. And Colomwani's flopping like we thought.
That 5.4 jetpack performance.
All right. Yeah, that's all we got. You can find me at Going Limbs. You can find Chang at Alex Chang with an X in the Chang. You can find Scott at Scotty Bird. You can find us at Seattle Spurs and Lilywhite on all social media platforms. Sign up for the Seattle Spurs newsletter. Get out to the Wits End Cascades, Rainier Growlers, wherever it might be most convenient for you to watch some matches with the Spurs family. Make sure to tip your bartenders. And, yeah, come on, you Spurs.